For my health behavior change, I wanted to increase my financial savings. I chose this change because I wanted to be more financially independent and to be more equipped to pay off student loans. I wanted this experience to give me a more responsible outlook when it came to money. While my savings didn't increase the way I wanted, I found my motivation and drive to make more money see an increase. My change was a SMART goal because it was specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. It was specific in the sense that I wanted to save $3,600 in savings by May. It was measurable because I created a spreadsheet for each month that tracked the money I made and my expenditures. I thought this goal was achievable because when I looked at the hours I was working compared with how much I make per hour, it seemed like a reasonable thing to reach this goal. It's relevant because my finances are really important to me, especially going to college and having the capability of paying off student loans. And it was also time-bound because I set a goal for myself in order to complete this by May. When Dr. Hurst brought this project to our attention, I had already previously been thinking about making this change in my life, so therefore I would say I kind of started in the contemplation stage. However, in order to get into the preparation stage, I needed to make a change in my decisional balance, so weighing my pros and cons. As I determined this change, I found that my pros did outweigh the cons. If I were to complete this change, I would see a bank account that more reflected someone who was financially stable with a good work ethic. The only cons was working takes time away from school and friends. However, I found a balance to where I would be comfortable with my finances and satisfied with my school and friends. Since I'm actively taking part in this behavior change, I am in the action stage, and I hope to maintain this change for as long as I can. Throughout this process, I went from getting my motivation through interjected regulation and eventually to identified regulation. At first, this goal was probably founded in how I wanted my parents to perceive me. I felt I needed to prove to them I could be financially independent. However, the more I dug into this goal, the more I felt it was truly something that is important to have as a personal goal. So this took me putting my parents' opinions aside and doing what I thought was best. Throughout my health behavior change, I identified two major barriers. The first one was a trip to Arizona I took, which ended up being pretty pricey, and this definitely set my goal of saving money behind. However, I also found that it set a drive in me to work hard, so I would be able to pay for this trip with the money I'd earned. The second barrier was not having a set income. This made it hard because I had no idea how much money I would make month to month since I get paid on an hourly basis. However, I would have assumed my friends to be a barrier, but they did not seem to cause much of a problem for me. My self-monitoring plan is probably what hurt me most in this project. I made an Excel sheet where I kept track of how much money I made and where I spent that money. I think if I had had a set income and known how much money I was exactly going to make, this method would have been fine. I looked into using an app for my phone, but for the purposes of this change, the app seemed too elaborate. I definitely want to continue practicing my health behavior change. However, using the self-monitoring plan that I chose, I think it'd be most beneficial for me to wait until I have a big girl job, if you will, in order to put this plan in place. However, I think if I shift my goal to work a certain amount of hours a week instead of make a certain amount of money each week, I would see a more beneficial health behavior change. The first lesson I learned throughout this behavior change was the importance of self-talk. Throughout this project, I would continually catch myself wanting to buy things as a way to comfort myself for the hardships I encountered. However, if I reframe these thoughts into thinking the more money I save, the happier I'll be at the end, the more positive this outcome will be for me. The second lesson I learned about myself was the importance of managing your barriers. So whenever you manage your barriers, there's two main components: priority and planning. In the past, I had tried to change other behaviors, and I had found that they were never successful. Come to find out, I wasn't prioritizing these. I didn't decide in my head that it was worth enough to use the effort needed to make this change. The second problem with my other plans, I wasn't planning them. I hadn't put time and thought into developing a plan that would actually work for me. There are two main ways I can apply what I've learned through this project in my future. The first being I can apply this in my own life, and the second being I can apply this when I hopefully become a middle school counselor and I have students who are hoping to make a behavior change. However, I want to be able to communicate the same two ideas in both scenarios. First, that failing is okay, and honestly, it's expected. You just have to learn to forgive yourself and to try again. The second thing I want to be able to communicate is the importance of being adaptable. Sometimes your original plan of attack doesn't work out like you had planned, so you need to make a slight change in order to make yourself more successful.